Okay. Hi, my name is Nikki McClung. I'm an account manager for Circular Action Alliance, and I'm here today, along with my colleague Travis, to walk you through the second webinar in our onboarding series on registration and agreements. Next slide. So before we jump in, just a legal disclaimer for everyone that the information provided in this presentation does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice. CAA cannot give legal advice, and so we'd advise you to check in with your attorney for any legal advice that you might need. And another reminder that CAA strictly follows antitrust rules, so we follow all federal, state, and international antitrust and competition laws, and will not be talking about any of the topics on the right-hand side. And these are just a few important reminders for you. This is, as I said, the second in a series of 3 onboarding webinars that we'll be hosting on registration and agreements, but feel free to join any and all as many times as you need and ask your questions. There's a QR code on the right if you'd like to sign up in our events page. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the journey of the producer, steps in getting registered, the PPA or the participant producer agreement, state addenda, and questions. Okay, so before you start, there are 2 primary questions businesses need to ask that will help determine if they're obligated under the EPR laws. One, is the material associated with my products covered by these EPR laws? And 2, is my business the responsible producer for these materials? EPR laws for packaging and paper vary from state to state, but are generally designed to apply to single-use packaging, paper, and some disposable products. As a first step in the process of identifying whether your company has obligations under the EPR law, companies should review with their attorneys the definitions of each material type to determine whether the materials associated with the producer placed in the market in Oregon and/or Colorado are subject to EPR laws. Second, companies should review the producer hierarchy associated with the covered materials to determine if their business is the obligated producer for those materials. So these are the steps in the producer journey. The producer journey will begin by registering with CAA. Once you've registered, you'll receive access to our reporting portal where you'll upload the pounds you've sold of each covered material per state. After the March 31st reporting deadline, CAA will set a final fee schedule and invoice producers, which time producers will pay, and the program will begin in that state. The first reporting and fee payment deadlines are for the state of Oregon in 2025. Next slide. The first step in the registration process is to complete the registration form on CAA's website. We'll ask you to provide company information and contact information for a primary contact and an authorized representative. After submitting the form, CAA will process your information and send you your company a copy of the Participant Producer Agreement, or PPA. It's the legal agreement mentioned on the last slide. Once the PPA is signed, you'll gain access to the reporting guidance and will be set to receive credentials for the producer reporting portal in early February 2025. For each state where you're obligated, companies will sign a specific state addendum that outlines state-specific requirements and formalizes your obligation. Not all state addenda are finalized, as they're dependent on the finalization of EPR regulations in states where CAA operates, and thus the documents are still in development. Each state addendum will be developed by CAA and provided to producers and will include state-specific policies, procedures, rules, and requirements applicable to the producer in that state. State addenda will not be required to gain access to the guidebook, but will be required to submit data to CAA. The Oregon State Addendum is expected in February 2025, following approval of the latest program plan submitted to CAA by CAA to the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. So we're going to dive deep into each of these steps for you. The registration form. So this is where you can start to access the registration form. You can find it on the producer registration page on our website, and then you'll see the link in the form where you need to complete it. So who should complete this? For each obligated NC as designated by an employer identification number or EIN should register. We encourage each obligated NC to register with CAA as their own registration. That means if your company has multiple EINs that fall under the rules of obligation, you should register separately for each of these EINs. If you believe you might be exempt, exclusions are generally categories of materials that are not covered materials on the EPR program. Therefore, there's no obligated producer and no need to register a report. In this scenario, the producer does not need to register, and we encourage those producers to sign up for our newsletter in order to stay informed. Exemptions from the program often require approval by the regulator for a proportion of volume that are covered materials in the program or a designation based on size, such as the small producer exemption. So if you have covered materials and are an obligated producer, you would still need to register, sign a PPA, and you may need to report material supply if applicable, and ultimately attest to any exemption annually for each state program in the CAA producer portal. We strongly encourage these producers to register and sign the PPA. You'll answer reporting questions in the portal that will exclude you from having to report and pay fees based on the exemptions that you meet. So the primary contact should be the ones who complete the registration form on behalf of the company and know who their authorized representative will be. The information required for registration. We'll ask you for your company information and for contact information for 2 key contacts at your company. For the company information, we'll ask for the name, the tax ID, address, and website. If your company has multiple EINs, we ask that each unique EIN register with CAA, and we'll ask that each individual EIN report. If you'd like to sign the PPA as one NC, we can accommodate that. Please reach out to us, or the link will be on the presentation. And even if you sign the PPA as one NC, as of right now, we're asking that each individual EIN plan to report. If that's going to be too cumbersome, you can reach out to producer.support@circularaction.org to inquire about what options you might have. We'll also ask for information like revenue and industry. We use this data for prioritization and understanding the producer landscape. You can estimate your revenue or put 0 in if you don't feel comfortable disclosing your revenue to us. And finally, as we mentioned in the slide before, we ask for a primary contact and an authorized representative. I'll hand it over to Travis.
All right, thank you, Nikki. Yeah, my name is Travis Pate. I am also an account manager here with CAA. So I'm gonna bring up the back half of the presentation here. So let's dive into the PPA and state addenda. So full registration requires signing both the PPA and the individual state addenda for each state where you're considered an obligated producer. One of the reasons we have separated the PPA from the state addenda is the different program implementation timelines. So at a high level, the PPA provides confidentiality protection for producers and allows CAA to begin sharing detailed reporting guidance. This will prepare producers to report their supply data. The PPA does not obligate any producers to pay fees at the time of signing. So the PPA does outline foundational responsibilities, while specific payment obligations and other elements will be detailed in the state-specific addenda once individual regulations and program plans are finalized. Next slide. All right, now let's discuss what a participant producer is. So participant producers are companies or organizations that are registered or otherwise required under applicable state law to register and participate in an EPR program for which CAA is the pro. Or in other words, a participant producer is someone who expects to be obligated under any of the EPR laws where CAA is acting as the pro. So it's important for each company to review the definition of obligated producer in each state, along with CAA's guidance on the definition of producer to determine the company's obligation. The PPA contains the terms and conditions between producers and CAA, outlining the actions to be taken by both producers and CAA to ensure the statutory obligations are fulfilled under state EPR laws. So terms and conditions include CAA's obligations as a pro, the producer's obligations as the regulated entity, including reporting, record keeping, and fee obligations. Confidentiality and dispute resolution and other items are also addressed in the PPA. So companies that sign the PPA will receive access to CAA's producer services team, our reporting portal, various forms of guidance and trainings to begin preparing in a timely manner for reporting. And in Oregon, that first deadline is coming up here at the end of Q1 at March 31st. All right, next slide, please. The purpose of the participant producer agreement, or the PPA, is to establish a working relationship between your company and CAA. It'll outline consistent terms and conditions for all producers and CAA. In 2024, we conducted an extensive consultation process with registered producers and have incorporated that feedback into the final version of the document. At this stage, we're not accepting further edits to the PPA. So producers are required to join the pro or apply to be independent producers. CAA's obligations include administer the program plan in each relevant state, develop a methodology to set fee rates per state, provide producer support for registration, reporting, and fee payment. And CAA is able to register producers on their behalf, but to do that in the CalRecycle electronic system, we'll need producers registered with CAA in advance of April 1st of 2026. The participant producer is obligated by the PPA to share accurate information about their company, to report data to CAA in the states where it signs a state addenda, maintain accurate records with CAA, pay fees in a timely manner once they've signed the state addenda and reported their data. And companies that sign the PPA will not be able to report data to CAA until they sign a state addendum. So we'll discuss the state addenda later in the presentation. And sometimes we do get questions around process for nullifying the agreement if it turns out you're not a producer. You can always contact us at the aforementioned producer.support@circularaction.org email, and we can always work to help out in that circumstance. All right. Continuing on the PPA also includes confidentiality and signatory clauses. So confidentiality, producers' information will be protected and may only be viewed by entities who need to know and may only be used for the program. So what does that mean? Some states require the pro to share a list of company names that are registered producers, and we will provide that in accordance with the law. We will not share any competitive information externally. So that would include revenue or anything that would make us non-compliant with antitrust laws. Our IT systems are secure and we enforce restrictions on how any data is shared externally. For the signatory, we're requiring that an authorized representative sign the PPA. This person's authorized on behalf of the producer to bind the company, sign legal contracts, and submit material supply data to CAA. There is, again, only one version of the PPA available for signature. We're not accepting any red lines or further edits, given our extensive feedback consultation process we went through for both the PPA and the Oregon State Addendum, and we'll do so again for future state addenda as they're made available. So after signing the PPA, if a producer later determines they no longer have obligations with any EPR state where CAA is the pro, as I said, they may terminate the agreement by reaching out to us and we'll help them through that process. All right, So how and when will I receive my PPA? After your company's registration is reviewed, your authorized representative will receive the PPA for signature via DocuSign. There is a manual validation process involved. It can take a few days, but you should receive the PPA within 5 business days. We have had reports from some producers having issues with the DocuSign email getting caught up in spam filters. So it can be helpful to have your digital security team whitelist the domain that you see here, which is docusign.circularaction.org. That's the domain that the email will come from. And finally, the system defaults to sending one PPA per registration. So if you'd like to sign one PPA on behalf of multiple subsidiaries, please contact the producer.support email before you sign your PPA. And next slide. All right, now that we've discussed the PPA, what it entails, turn to the state addenda. The PPA and state addenda are really complementary documents. And the PPA and state addenda together are what equal full registration for a state program. The PPA, as we discussed, formalizes the terms and conditions. The state addenda is what formally obligates you in a particular state. You will not sign a state addendum for a state in which you're not obligated. This document does obligate producer fees and dues with CAA. Therefore, they're written in conjunction with the state program plans. At this time, the Oregon State Addenda is being finalized, and future state addenda will be made available as state regulations and program plans are completed. All right. The state addendum for Oregon includes the clauses you'll see here, and it's likely that other state addenda will follow a similar layout. So there's definitions. We'll have clear definitions of the terms used in the document. Exemptions, details around the state-specific exemptions. As a reminder, those that are expected to be exempt, we still encourage you to sign this addendum as it allows us a paper trail to communicate back to regulators that your company is in compliance. Reporting, there is a minimum reporting requirement for each state, including categories and other expectations. Record keeping, this has our parameters for keeping and maintaining accurate records and the audit rights of CAA. Fees, this has details about how fee rates will be set and an overview of the methodology. However, it does not outline what the fee numbers will be. These change each year as the program costs and packaging volumes change each year. Therefore, we'll publish a unique fee schedule each year, but that will not require a new signature to the addendum. And finally, it outlines CAA's compliance and enforcement duties with respect to the implementation of the Oregon program. It's in the best interest of producers and CAA to be able to ensure that all data is accurately reported and that all obligated producers are participating. Next slide. How will I receive my state addendum? It's going to be similar to the PPA. Your authorized representative will receive the Oregon State Addendum via email from DocuSign. It will come from that same domain, the at docusign.circularaction.org. So just another reminder on getting that domain whitelisted. Signing the Oregon State Addendum is required before the authorized representative is able to submit any data on reporting. However, any authorized rep, primary contact, or reporting contact can begin entering data before the Oregon State Addendum is complete. So you'll get, if you have portal credentials, you can start your reporting, but you won't be able to submit it until the addendum is signed. And as a final note on signature, only the authorized rep can sign the addendum. So please don't forward it to somebody else. If you need to update the authorized rep on the account, reach out to us at the producer.support email. We'll make those changes on your account and then reissue the addendum. All right, so to bring it back where we started, these are the steps in the registration process. You must complete all of these steps to be considered registered and fully compliant in the state of Oregon before you can submit data. Once available, you'll complete the same steps for California and Colorado. And next slide. So, how to stay engaged? First step after the session, if you haven't already done so, is to register. Additionally, you can access our Producer Resource Center on the website. We have a wealth of information and help to help you out through the process. We have a monthly newsletter you can sign up for that will keep you up to date on the latest developments. As we mentioned multiple times, you can email us directly at producer.support@circularaction.org. And finally, as we mentioned at the top, this is the second in a three-part onboarding series. So they're meant to build upon each other, but you can also take each topic alone. If you missed 101, feel free to go back and sign up for that session. You can do this at the events section on our website or by scanning the QR code that you see here. And I appreciate your time to take a view on this and looking forward to helping you along with your EPR journey. Thank you.